Today we cover Operation Epic Fury, the government shutdown, and the IOC's new ruling on trans athletes, plus the Druski and Erika Kirk feud, and the latest on Tiger Woods. All that and more right now. Welcome back to the Republic Brothers podcast. He's Matt, I'm Mike. Today is March 29th, 2026, and this is episode 46. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next episode on Thursday. I want to start the show today with some updates on the LaGuardia crash from last week. This past Friday, there was a repatriation ceremony at Newark for the two Canadian pilots that were lost, Captain Antoine Forrest and First Officer Mackenzie Gunther. This whole thing is just heartbreaking. Earlier in the week, crews finally towed the wreckage into a hangar. The cockpit and forward galley were completely shredded, but the rest of the fuselage stayed mostly together, which experts are calling a total miracle for everyone else that was on board. Now, investigators are looking into why only two controllers were in the tower. It looks like one person was trying to juggle two active runways and all the ground traffic at the same time. Reports say a controller cleared the Air Canada flight to land, then less than 2 minutes later cleared a fire truck to cross the same runway. The plane hit the back of the truck at about 90 miles per hour, which flipped the truck and crushed the nose of the plane. Out of the 76 people on board, 39 ended up in the hospital. Most are home now, but a few were still in bad shape earlier this week. A flight attendant named Solange Tremblay was ejected from the plane while still in her jump seat. She is alive and recovering from surgery from some broken bones. We should see the formal preliminary report from the NTSB in the next 30 days. Now, as we said in the last episode, it seems like there was more than one mistake that led to this. Only two controllers in a tower in an airport like LaGuardia does not seem like enough. I saw the video of the crash. It is tough to watch. The crash happened maybe a third of the way down the runway from where the plane was landing, so there was no way that plane was going to be able to stop. And it's sad too because the controller was telling the truck to stop well before it got onto the runway.
Yeah, that was tough to watch. The plane is in a position where the pilots simply can't do anything. They can't slow down quick enough to avoid it, while they also don't have enough speed to go back into the air. As we talked about in the last episode, it's not all on one person when a crash happens. You know the controller feels terrible, but there were mistakes made before he even cleared that plane to land. Having one person in the tower at an airport the size of LaGuardia is insane. The controller's trying to deal with an emergency on the ground while also trying to control traffic coming into land. That seems like it's a bit too much of a workload, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's tough to hear that audio that we played on the last episode too, where you hear him say, "I messed up." You never want to hear that from an air traffic controller, but again, it was not all his fault. All right, we just wanted to touch on that real quick. Let's get into Operation Epic Fury and Iran. Here was Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt speaking on the war just a few days ago.
Again, let me reiterate, this is the largest elimination of a Navy on the face of the planet in a 3-week period since World War II. We are systematically dismantling Iran's defense industrial base, which will prevent future threats to the region. Our military also remains laser focused on eliminating the regime's threat to the free flow of energy through the Strait of Hormuz. Over the weekend, we dropped several 5,000-pound bombs on an underground facility used to store equipment, including anti-ship cruise missiles and mobile missile launchers positioned along the coastline of the strait. Our military efforts grow more successful with each passing day, steadily degrading Iran's ability to terrorize merchant ships. For all of these reasons, we are very close to meeting the core objectives of Operation Epic Fury, and this military mission continues unabated. From the outset, President Trump and the Department of War estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve this critical mission. 25 days in, the greatest military the world has ever known is ahead of schedule and performing exceptionally. Day by day, the Iranian regime is being crippled and their ability to threaten the United States and our allies is being significantly weakened. Their ambitions of building a nuclear weapon have also been crushed to an even greater degree than they were in Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025. That's why you're beginning to see the regime look for an exit ramp. They recognize they are being crushed, their ability to attack American and ally forces, as well as their ability to defend their own territory is dwindling literally hour by hour. Following President Trump's powerful threat on Saturday evening, it was made clear to the United States that Iran wanted to talk. President Trump is willing to listen. As President Trump announced on Monday, the United States has been engaged over the last 3 days in productive conversations, which led the president to temporarily instruct the Department of War to postpone planned strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure only. The remaining elements of the Iranian regime have another opportunity to cooperate with President Trump, permanently abandon their nuclear ambitions, and cease actively threatening America and our allies. But the president's preference is always peace. There does not need to be any more death and destruction. But if Iran fails to accept the reality of the current moment, if they fail to understand that they have been defeated militarily and will continue to be, President Trump will ensure they are hit harder than they have ever been hit before. President Trump does not bluff, and he is prepared to unleash hell. Iran should not miscalculate again. Their last miscalculation cost them their senior leadership, their Navy, their Air Force, and their air defense system. Any violence beyond this point will be because the Iranian regime refused to understand they have already been defeated and refused to come to a deal.
Well said by the press secretary there. Iran will eventually realize they don't have the cards to play to actually win, so they will negotiate. The real question is what Iran is willing to give up. Can they give up their ambitions to get a nuclear weapon? I think they will eventually get there when top leadership knows they don't have any other options.
Yeah, I think at this point, Iran is pretty much wiped out. I mean, they really don't have a whole lot left. At this point, I think they're just trying to stall as much as they can, but I think it's pretty much over for them. They're basically just holding on to the Strait of Hormuz, trying to use that as basically the only leverage that they have left.
They are holding on, and they're going to continue to hold on until it's clear it's over. I am curious how much of an operation Israel and the U.S. are doing inside Iran to try and get the people to rise up. This is as weak as they have ever been, and if the people do want a change of leadership, here is their best opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with you. The citizens of Iran, this is their time to rise up. Here was Secretary of State Marco Rubio speaking on the war and the Strait of Hormuz.
As the Department of War has consistently outlined, we are on or ahead of schedule in that operation and expect to conclude it at the appropriate time here in a matter of weeks, not months, and the progress is going very well. Obviously, we have some work to do. We have to finish the job, and we are finishing that job. I did describe to our allies, however, that immediately after this thing ends, we're done with our objectives, one of the immediate challenges we're going to face is an Iran that may decide that they want to set up a tolling system in the Straits of Hormuz. Not only is this illegal, it's unacceptable, it's dangerous to the world, and it's important that the world have a plan to confront it. The United States is prepared to be a part of that plan. We don't have to lead that plan, but we're happy to be a part of it. But these countries have a lot at stake, not just the G7 countries, but countries in Asia and all over the world have a lot at stake and should contribute greatly to that effort to ensure that neither the Straits of Hormuz or frankly any international waterways should ever be something that's controlled or tolled by a nation state or by a terroristic government like the one that exists in Iran today and that radical clerical regime. So there seemed to be a lot of buy-in to that concept. There's a lot of work happening right now. The UK has played a prominent role in bringing that together, but other countries as well, and there seems to be a lot of acceptance of all that, and our allies and partners here, at least to me, seem to be appreciative of updates on our operation and an understanding of what lies ahead over the next few weeks.
The part I wanted to hear and did hear is that we will finish the job. If we just up and left now, it would only strengthen the resolve of the regime and make them think that what they are doing is righteous. They will use what has happened as evidence that they need a nuclear weapon.
In that clip, Rubio warned that Iran might try to set up an illegal and unacceptable tolling system in the strait. How much leverage does Iran actually have to even enforce something like that?
Well, given the proximity to Iran, it wouldn't be too difficult. You have to keep in mind it is a very narrow passageway. It is 21 miles across, but the channel deep enough for large ships is only 2 miles wide. It does not take much to disrupt that. And as we said in the previous episode, you don't actually need to close the strait. You just have to make it more dangerous to add uncertainty, and that will cause oil prices to skyrocket. They could absolutely interfere with ships in the region if we left and nobody was there to be the deterrent. Many European nations need the supply of oil from the Middle East, so they would be wise to make sure the straits stay open. It's encouraging to hear Rubio say that they want to cooperate with each other to keep the straits open. The U.S. may need to help them, but at least they could take the lead on something for once.
Okay, we are moving right along here. Let's go over some quick updates on the current government shutdown. The Department of Homeland Security remains in a partial government shutdown, which has now reached 44 days as of March 29th. The Senate passed a funding measure by voice vote on Friday, March 27th to reopen DHS. However, the bill excludes funding for ICE and Border Patrol. House leadership is currently refusing to take up the Senate's bill because it lacks the Save America Act and funding for the administration's deportation efforts. In response to significant airport delays, President Trump has indicated that he may declare a national emergency to ensure TSA personnel and other essential workers start receiving pay, even if the shutdown continues. Here is what President Trump had to say when asked about TSA agents staying home during the shutdown.
Mr. President, what would be your message today to the TSA agents who have been staying home in recent days amid this impasse?
Well, some of them are needing money, because the Democrats cut off their money. I blame the Democrats more than anything else. But some of them, they didn't get paid because they're not funded by the Democrats. This is a Democrat problem. In fact, I actually said to the Senate, why would you say this is a Democrat problem? I think the polls are showing it's a Democrat problem. And they'll do anything actually to hurt our country so they can try and win the midterms. And if we ever went back to our old policies, we wouldn't have a country left.
If they get a deal, Republicans and Democrats in the Senate, to fund all but enforcement operations of ICE, to get those TSA agents repaid and to open up the rest of the department, would you sign that?
Well, I don't want to comment until I see the deal. But as you know, they're negotiating a deal. I guess they're getting fairly close. But I think any deal they make, I'm pretty much not happy with it. These guys came in, they wouldn't pay people. They had a deal to pay. They had to break their deal. The Democrats broke the deal that we had. It was all done. Everything was fine. And then they just said, well, we're not going to pay anymore. And they hurt our country. And at a very difficult time because, we are at, as they would say, a war. They call it a war. I call it a military operation, a very successful one, successful like nobody's ever seen before. Hey, Venezuela was equally as successful. That was a great thing. No, the Democrats had a deal. It was a done deal. And then they said, well, we're not going to pay. And so a lot of people suffered over that and put our country in danger.
I think Trump makes a very good point here. The Democrats don't care if it hurts our country because that would be bad for Trump and good for their chances of getting back in power in Congress. 44 days is a long time to go without a paycheck, so that was a good message from Trump. Don't blame them for not going to work. Blame the Democrats to help get your message out that you are the ones trying to fund the government while Democrats are blocking your paycheck. It's just very unfortunate that government employees are pawns for the politicians in Washington to use.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why in the last episode, we had that discussion about privatizing things like TSA and air traffic controllers. Now, I mentioned earlier that House leadership was not happy with the Senate's proposal. Here's what Speaker Mike Johnson had to say in response.
The Republicans are not going to be a party to this. They have taken hostage the funding processes of government so that they can impose their radical agenda on the American people when we can't have any part of it. This gambit that was done last night is a joke. I'm quite convinced that it can't be that every Senate Republican read the language of this bill, and it is unconscionable to me that the Democrats would force some sort of negotiation at 3 o'clock in the morning and try to hoist this upon the American people and then get on their jets and go home for their holiday and pretend and think that we're going to go along with that. So we're going to do something different. We're going to do the responsible thing. Republicans are going to continue to govern and do the right thing morally, legally, and politically. What we are going to present and what we're going to vote on this floor, our Rules Committee is working through this right now. We're going to put a clean, simple, continuing resolution that will go until May 22nd. It's just a number of weeks to allow for all those who sacrificially serve the country and protect other Americans. All these agencies, 10 agencies under the Department of Homeland Security, will continue at their current funding levels to make sure that they are protected. We're going to send that over to the Senate, and we hope that they'll accept that. They can do it in record time just like that with the unanimous consent. They could do that as early as Monday. In the meantime, TSA will be paid. We will have done our jobs, and we will protect the homeland because that is the most basic responsibility of the Congress, is to protect the American people. We're not playing political games on this. We encourage some of our Democrats, hopefully we'll have some of our Democrats in the House who go along with this and stop the pain that's being forced upon these people. The reason that we can't accept this ridiculousness, okay, is because we're not going to risk not funding the agencies that keep the American people safe. The Department of Homeland Security is the third largest department in the federal government. It has 10 agencies beneath it. It's not just TSA, it's also FEMA, the Coast Guard, all these agencies that keep us safe. We must fund them. This is not a game. Republicans will do the responsible and honorable thing, and Democrats will continue to play politics.
Again, well said here by Johnson. He gets his points across. Do you think Democrats would sign a deal that funds DHS until mid-May so people get their paychecks to provide for their family? Or do we just continue this game and hold their checks hostage for political gain?
Zero chance they sign a deal. Neither side wants to budge and seem like they gave up.
Given how far we are into this shutdown, I don't know what the incentive is going to have to be for one side or the other to cave. And that's what it would be at this point. They seem like they're very far apart. I just don't have any idea what it would take to get one side to give in.
Yeah, there certainly does not look like there's any light at the end of the tunnel. Now, we talked earlier about the safety of our nation. Now let's talk about the safety of women's sports. Here's the latest news from the International Olympic Committee.
And this news just coming into us, the International Olympic Committee has banned transgender women from competing in female events. IOC President Kirsty Coventry says eligibility will be determined by a once-in-a-lifetime sex test, which would prevent transgender women and those with differences in sexual development from competing. That includes individual and team sports. And the ban will take effect from the Los Angeles Olympics in 2028.
Well, it's about time. Why would you want men in women's sports? Ever since this transgender thing became a topic, I was always wondering where the feminists are who are fighting for women's rights. It's nice of the feminists who want trans rights to put men over women, but they just don't see the hypocrisy in that position. To help women, they want to let men who are bigger and stronger compete and share women's locker rooms. It makes no sense. The IOC finally got something right.
Yeah, I can't believe it took this long for the IOC to say this. We've seen the biological differences between men and women across multiple sports multiple times. It is an absolute shame that it took this long. Now, here's another trans-related story that is going viral this week. Matt, have you seen the video of the trans lawyer being arrested for contempt?
I have seen it. That was very funny. He says it's happened to him before. He brings up the fact that he's trans and then calls the judge ma'am. She should have accused him of assuming her gender. That was a quick detransition at the end as well.
We're going to play a quick audio clip from the video, but for anyone who hasn't seen it, here's a summary of the full 6-minute video. The conflict starts when the judge expresses frustration because the attorney's client failed to appear in person. As transgender attorney Rob Hopkins attempts to argue regarding the client's testimony and education, the judge repeatedly orders her to stop and settle down. The judge accuses Hopkins of having a smirk and warns that further interruptions will result in being held in indirect contempt of court. During the exchange, Hopkins suggests that treatment might be due to a transgender attorney practicing all over the state, to which the judge answers, "I don't know who you are, and I don't care." The situation spirals when Hopkins begins shouting, "Get out of my face," at someone in the courtroom. I'm assuming it was the opposing counsel.
It was opposing counsel, and he was not in her face. And his hands were in his pockets, so he was not much of a threat.
Yeah, it was completely unthreatening posture. The judge officially declares Hopkins in indirect contempt of court due to the screaming and yelling. Court deputies move in to detain Hopkins, and as they attempt to secure handcuffs, Hopkins repeatedly shouts, "Do not hurt me," and "I am not resisting." The struggle continues to the floor where Hopkins repeatedly cries out, "I can't breathe," and asks for someone to get a female officer now.
All right, we're going to pick you up. We're on your side.
No, I don't. Get a female officer now. Get a female officer now.
Get up.
Get a female officer now.
There are standing.
I can't get up. I can't see. He just threw my glasses. I can't see. Give me my glasses. Put them on my face.
No.
Put them on my face. I cannot see.
Get up. Go.
Please give me my glasses. I cannot see. I'm trying to walk and I cannot see.
We'll walk you.
I need my wallet.
All right, now that the clip is over. Hold on there 1 second, buddy. What do you mean you want a female officer? I don't know, Matt. To me, that sounded like a direct admission that she knows she's not actually a man.
Well, at a minimum, it tells you she knows what female is and what male is. She's of the opinion that there's something else.
Yeah. At this point, she's only pretending to be a man, and now that it's gotten real, she's ready to switch back. I got to tell you, though, I have never seen a male attorney act like that in court. Could you imagine if every man that got arrested started demanding a female officer? And the part where she's screaming about not being able to breathe? You wouldn't be screaming about not being able to breathe if you weren't resisting. She's not exactly in great shape either, so that could be a factor.
That's why she couldn't breathe, because she's out of shape. It was really funny to me, the way she acted. She was just a lawyer, but the moment things didn't go her way, she was trans. And when that didn't help her, she picked the gender which would most help her, which was female. It didn't help her, thankfully, because the judge wasn't an idiot. I thought it was funny, too, because they were arguing over the case right before she started yelling at the opposing counsel. And he actually says the trans attorney's client will never appear in court for the case because there are active warrants out for their arrest. That is a reasonable statement and explains why the client for the trans attorney was only available over the phone. This, in total, is what happens when you cater to someone's delusions. The sense of entitlement was clear to see. I just love the quick detransition back to female once the officer started to use physical force.
Yeah, and then when she's on the ground and she's like, "Oh, the officer threw my glasses," and just the whole huffing and puffing the whole time too was, the whole thing was over the top. Let's move on to our next story. Matt, I'm sure you've heard about Tiger Woods getting arrested for DUI. He's out of jail, but he is not out of the woods. See what I did there?
We've got Alexis McAdams. She's got more details. And Alexis, I also, point out this happened in the middle of the day. The arrest was at, I believe, 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's right. And one of the things that stuck out to me, too, was just, as you mentioned before, a residential area. So it's a small roadway there, a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. So according to the police, Tiger Woods is going pretty fast and his SUV clips the back of a car he's trying to pass that had 2 people in it. And then his SUV rolled at least one time, and then I guess it was on its side, the police said, and just kind of slid down that roadway. So as Greg said, it's actually amazing that nobody else was injured here or killed in this residential area. It's a neighborhood. So they have said they're holding him there in custody behind bars for at least 8 hours. That's their protocol there in Florida. They don't mess around when it comes to DUI, and they shouldn't. So they're going to try to figure out now exactly what he was impaired by. They talk about his past, right, with those injuries you just all discussed, his, a lot of things that have happened to him. Was he on pills? Was he on medication? They said it was not alcohol because he blew a 0 on his breathalyzer test. So it's still a lot more to come on this, but a sad situation. So we'll keep you posted.
That was the report from CBS on the latest involving Tiger Woods. 000s on the breathalyzer, but a refusal for the labs. That is the detail that's going to hang over this investigation. This is tough to watch, especially seeing the 2017 and 2021 clips brought back up. This is turning into a pattern for Tiger. The memes are flying left and right. The best one I saw yesterday, though, it said, "I'd rather ride shotgun with Tiger Woods than attend a No Kings protest." There was also a Georgia football one where it was about wearing red and not being able to complete a drive. Jokes aside, though, this is bad for Tiger, especially when you're talking about high speeds in a residential 30-mile-an-hour zone.
I would be curious how fast he was going, because it's very difficult to roll a car at 30 miles an hour. It's a really bad look for Tiger that this keeps happening. And given it has happened in the past, it's pretty clearly a lack of judgment on Tiger's part. I would imagine at this point they got a warrant and were able to get a sample of blood or urine. You are clearly showing signs of impairment if you blew 0s and still got arrested. The officer saw something that made them think you were impaired, and your car being on its side would not help Tiger.
Yeah, contrary to what most people believe, you do not have to be drunk in order to get a DUI. Now, I want to finish out the show today talking about the Druski and Erika Kirk feud. For anyone who hasn't seen the skit, Druski dresses up like Erika Kirk in a video called "How Conservative Women in America Act." Now, he doesn't actually say in the video that he's pretending to be Erika Kirk, but you can see the intent right away. Now, I probably have a different opinion about this than most conservatives. Was it mean? Yes. Was it funny? Also yes. But that's the part that people who are upset about it are missing. Not everything is funny to everyone. Druski came up with a skit to make people laugh. People laughed. I laughed. Even my wife laughed at it, and she's a conservative woman. That's what a joke is. But this is the most important part for all liberals out there who thought that this was hilarious. Remember this when someone makes fun of you and you get offended. Remember this the next time Dave Chappelle makes fun of transgenders, or Theo Vaughn makes a joke about your blue hair and your bull nose ring. Rob Schneider said, "Free speech isn't the speech you like. Nice stuff is not what needs to be protected. It's the stuff that you hate that needs protection, so that somebody like the government or you doesn't get to decide what everybody else gets to hear."
That is a great quote from Rob Schneider. Look, Druski's a comedian, and I really didn't care all that much about this. I didn't find it all that funny, but I also didn't think it was all that offensive either. Now, I'm just wondering where all the race activists are, because he's dressed up in whiteface. If the roles were reversed, imagine the outrage. I did find Druski's take on the coffee order pretty funny, but that's most women, not just conservative ones. He had a lot of truth in that part of it.
Yeah, that's the part, too, that had my wife laughing. She thought that part was really funny. Aside from that, I think Erika reacted in a way that I think made things worse for her, to be honest. She should have just ignored it. Instead, I think she poured gasoline on the fire by even acknowledging it. Erika commented on the video saying, Druski, this is sick. You fully dressed up as me, copied my look, my voice, my mannerisms, and turned me into a joke for millions of people. But let me guess, when it's done to me, it's suddenly comedy. If I did anything even remotely comparable, y'all would be trying to ruin my life. This is racist, humiliating, and you know exactly what you're doing. Druski responded, I never even said your name in the video. The fact that you saw a wig, a Bible, and a character and immediately decided it was about you is kind of telling on yourself. Now, she's not wrong about the shoe being on the other foot. You alluded to that as well. If she put on blackface and pretended to be him, the left would explode. It's a double standard for sure, regardless of the left's narrative that blackface has historical meaning that somehow makes it racist. That is just a BS excuse. If someone wears blackface in a performance meant to be funny and it makes someone laugh, it is the exact same thing as this. But Erika, please, do yourself a favor here and just ignore it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. She would have been better off saying nothing, or even saying it was funny, because people will like you more if you can laugh at a joke about yourself. Think back to the Golden Globes when Ricky Gervais made a joke about Leonardo DiCaprio. People liked Leo more afterwards because he laughed at the joke about himself. Don't take things too seriously, and understand sometimes people don't mean what they say. They're saying it to get a laugh or to make money.
Yeah, and of course, Candace Owens had to put her 2 cents in. She responded saying, hey, Erika, you and I both knew Charlie, and let's be honest. He would have laughed at the skit. He understood satire, he understood humor, and he definitely wouldn't have treated a parody like some national emergency. I don't like this from Candace Owens. Candace Owens implying that she knew Charlie just as well as his wife is a bit much. Now, maybe he would have laughed, maybe not. But when this statement comes from Candace Owens, a fully documented Erika Kirk hater, it's best taken with a grain of salt. Let's not forget that Candace has been suggesting for months that Erika was involved in her husband's death.
Oh, the conspiracy theories from Candace. What else do we get from Candace? I highly doubt Candace Owens knew Charlie as well as Charlie's own wife. But I have a feeling she said that intentionally to get under Erika's skin. Erika clearly is not as good with public life as Charlie was, but that's understandable given Charlie started when he was like 19 years old.
Yeah, I don't think a whole lot of people even knew who Erika Kirk was until Charlie was assassinated. So she was just kind of thrust in there.
Yeah, I did not know who she was before Charlie's passing. I knew Charlie had a family, but had never heard their names. Well, as we come to the end of the episode, it's time for our blind ranking segment. Same category as last time. I have been elected president, and I have offered you any position you want. You ready, Mike?
Yep, fire away.
First position up is Secretary of Education.
5.
5? You don't want to help kids learn?
Nope.
Wow, so mean.
Well, the plan should be to get rid of it, so yeah, number 5.
Next up, you have the Secretary of Health and Human Services. You can take Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s job.
I
won't mind if you start shouting at people that they're fat.
I'm gonna put that at 3. Yeah, 3.
Number 3, all right. Next up, you have the Administrator of NASA. You get to go play with some rockets.
Ooh, that'd be kind of fun, I think. I'm gonna put that at 2.
Number 2? I don't think you'll love the next one. Secretary of Agriculture.
Yeah, 4. What's my number 1?
You will be my White House press secretary.
Okay.
That's your number 1.
I'm down with that. I could school some people in the press room.
We are not politically correct, and this president will allow you to drop the occasional F-bomb.
Excellent. I'm down for it.
We use them strategically to get our points across.
Sounds like a plan. I think I'd be good at that. All right, that is it for episode 46 of the Republic Brothers podcast. Before you click away, please hit the subscribe and follow button. New episodes drop every Monday and Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.